Competitive Gen 2 is competitive play of Pokémon Gold, Silver and Crystal. It is frequently referred to as GSC, a reference to the first letter of the 3 games. This video will discuss Smogon's GSC scene. Smogon GSC is divided into various tiers, with various rule sets and bans dictating what you can and can't use. Pokémon Showdown is a website that simulates battling in the actual Gen 2 games. It implements all the bans and tiers for you to play. This video will be divided into 2 segments. Segment 1 will cover the basic game mechanics of Gen 2. Segment 2 will cover how you can actually play and learn GSC tiers. With all of that out of the way, it's explaining time. So, let's pretend for a moment that you are some guy. Your only experience with competitive Pokémon is everything after Gen 5, X and Y to Scarlet and Violet. If you wanted to learn Gen 2, it would be wise to look at both what is different and what is not there. To begin with, here is a list of things critical to later competitive generations that just don't exist in GSC. Pokémon abilities, the Fairy type, Mega Evolutions, Z-moves, Dynamax, Terrestrialization, Pokémon Natures, EV Training, Stealth Rock, Toxic Spikes, Defog, Knockoff, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, Heavy Duty Boots, Calm Mind, Nasty Claw, Roost, Assault Fist, U-Turn, Volt Switch, Scald, Focus Sash, Life Orb, and finally, Team Preview. You do not get a full preview of your opponent's team before the battle. By all standards, competitive Gen 2 is much smaller and more simple than its successors. When you are building a team, all you really have to worry about is a Pokemon's moveset. You don't have to care about natures, EV spreads, Terra type, none of that. Items exist in GSC, but you're almost always using leftovers in that slot. Leftovers not only thrive in GSC's environment, but also tower over the other items in sheer usefulness. I said EV spreads and training effectively don't exist, and I'd like to delve into that. It's probably the biggest and most impactful difference between Gen 2 and every generation after. If you've played Gens 3 and beyond, you likely know of Pokémon EVs and IVs. In GSC, IVs are referred to as DVs, or determinate values. DVs are conceptually similar to IVs, being built-in values that determine a Pokemon's stats. The attack, defense, speed, and special stats of a Pokemon have their own DV value, ranging from 0, the lowest, to 15, the highest. The HP DV of a Pokemon is determined by the other DV values. A Pokemon's DVs determine several things, not just their stats. To use shiny or female Pokemon, you have to lower the DVs and by extension stats of your Pokemon. DVs also determine what hidden power type a Pokemon will have. Hidden power is a very important move in GSC, and you need to lower your DVs to use all but one of the types, that being Dark. For some hidden power types, like Ice or Bug, you only need to lower DVs a small amount. Some types, like Fire or Grass, need a far larger cut to your stats. Forget about DVs though. The far bigger and more impactful difference lies in how EVs work. GSC's EV system works differently than the one in Gen 3 and beyond, instead being referred to as Stat Experience. You don't need to fully delve into how Stat Experience works, because on Pokémon Showdown, you can instantly get Pokémon with maxed out stats. What you need to know is that the stat caps aren't quite the same. In Gen 3, you have a maximum of 252 EV points to put into a stat. In GSC, you can get up to 65,353 stat experience points in every stat. These points are a bit inflated. If you compare a Pokemon with maxed out stat experience and EVs, and a Pokemon with maxed out EVs and IVs, they have almost the exact same stats. Here is the kicker though. With Stat Experience, you can max out every stat area. With EVs, you can only max out 2 of your stats. This means every Pokémon in GSC can effectively run 252 EVs in all 6 of their stats, if you want to compare it to later generations. Yeah, this has a pretty seismic impact on the game. Everything in GSC is bulkier, mixed attackers are more effective, there's no speed creeping with EVs. I really cannot do stat experience justice in words. Compare GSC to everything after and you will feel a seismic difference. Of course, stat experience is not the only reason GSC is different. Let's move past Pokemon stats and look at the type chart. The Steel type takes resisted damage from Ghost and Dark type attacks, as opposed to the neutral damage it would take in Gen 6 and beyond. While on the topic of types, they still determine if an attacking move is physical or special. Every normal, fighting, flying, poison, ground, rock, bug, ghost and steel type attack is a physical move. Every fire, water, grass, electric, psychic, ice, dragon and dark type attack is a special move. There are no exceptions to this. Moving past the type chart, we have turns themselves. When a Pokemon faints, the turn ends no matter what. For example, if you go first and KO your Pokemon with Explosion and the other Pokemon survives, they won't use the move that was selected that turn. The same thing happens if a Pokemon is KO'd by Poison, Burn, or Spikes damage. Next up, let's look at boosting moves. A Pokemon in battle cannot have one of its stats exceed 999. If you have a Pokemon with a setup move, and a naturally high stat in the area they are boosting, the game might say their stat can't go any higher, even if they haven't boosted to +6. They've reached that 999 cap. There do exist ways to bypass this cap though. If Thick Club Marowak boosts too much with Sword Stance, its attack stat actually overflows. The same can happen to Shuckle's defensive stats if Reflect or Light Screen are up. Thick Club Marowak sure is strong. You know who else is strong? The sponsor of this video. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's Critical Hits. The vast majority of moves in GSC have a 6.64% or 1 in 15 chance of landing a critical hit. Some moves, like Cross Chop, have higher chances to crit. A critical hit doubles the amount of damage that a move would normally do. When a move lands a critical hit, all stat stage modifiers, the halved attack from Burn, and the boost from Light Screen and Reflect, are ignored if the target's defending stat stage is greater or equal to the attacker's attacking stat stage. Let's move past critical hits. Paralysis quarters the speed of a Pokemon inflicted by it, as opposed to halving it. Paralysis-inducing moves that aren't electric type, such as Glare or Stun Spore, can paralyze ground types. The odds to thaw from a freeze in GSC are lower. You have a 10% chance to thaw at the end of a turn. You cannot use a move on the turn you thaw out. If you hit a frozen Pokemon with a fire type move that is not hidden power fire, they will be thawed out. A Pokemon inflicted with poison loses 1/8 of their maximum HP every turn. They take this damage right after they use a move, as opposed to at the end of a turn. If you swap a poisoned Pokemon in, they immediately take poison damage, as opposed to taking it at the end of a turn. If a Pokemon is swapped into a move and they are poisoned by it, they won't take any damage from poison on that turn. A Pokemon will not take poison damage upon switching if brought in after another Pokemon faints. They also don't take damage if dragged in by Roar or Whirlwind. These mechanics also apply to the damage taken from Burn, and in some cases, Leech Seed. Finally, Toxic Poison reverts to regular poison when you switch out. Sleep-inducing moves cause Pokemon to sleep for 1 to 6 turns. You are able to use a move on the turn you wake up. A Pokemon inflicted with Confusion has a 50% chance to hit itself, as opposed to a 33% chance. Let's move on to major move differences. Many moves have differences in GSC. Some have huge impacts on the world of competitive GSC. The move Spikes can only be used once in GSC. Trying to set up 2 or 3 layers of the move, like you can do in Gen 3 and beyond, will cause Spikes to fail. Despite this, Spikes is still probably the best move in competitive Gen 2. The relationship between Rest and Sleep Talk differs in GSC. If Sleep Talk selects Rest in Gen 3 and beyond, Rest will fail and no HP is restored. If Sleep Talk selects Rest in GSC though, Rest will work like it normally does. The Pokemon's HP is restored to 100% and its sleep counter is reset. This difference makes Rest plus Sleep Talk an incredibly potent combination in GSC, and is why it sees such widespread usage. Explosion and self-destruct half the defense of the opposing Pokemon when used. This makes them incredibly powerful. Various moves have not yet had their base power nerfed. Examples include Hidden Power, Thunder, and Surf. On the other hand, some moves have not yet been buffed. Examples include Outrage, High Jump Kick, and Giga Drain. Speaking of Giga Drain, it fails when used against a substitute. The move Recover has 32 PP, greatly increasing its viability. If you use Belly Drum below 50% HP, you will gain +2 attack and not lose any HP. If both Pokemon on the field use Roar or Whirlwind, the slower Pokemon will force the other out. The effects of the moves Mean Look and Spiderweb can be passed to another Pokemon with Baton Pass. Moves with a chance to flinch, like Rock Slide, can't flinch if the opposing Pokemon is asleep. Moves with a guaranteed secondary effect, like Zap Cannon and its Paralysis, have a 1 in 256 chance of not inducing that secondary effect. The move counter works against every type of hidden power, physical or special. The move Encore lasts for 3 to 6 turns, and fails if used against certain moves. The most notable one is Sleep Talk. You cannot Encore Sleep Talk in GSC. Finally, the move Struggle deals 1/4 of the damage it dealt in recoil damage, rather than dealing recoil damage equal to 1/4 of the Pokemon's maximum HP stat. And that concludes our list of the most notable Gen 2 mechanics. That's all the mechanic differences that I think everyone learning Gen 2 should know. That concludes segment 1. In segment 2, we will look at both how you can learn and play competitive Gen 2 Pokemon. To begin with, let's look at the Smogon rules, or clauses, that exist in the main GSC tiers. These are all implemented onto Pokémon Showdown. First on the list is Freeze Clause. If you freeze a Pokemon, you can't freeze another on that team. Next, Sleep Clause. If you sleep a Pokemon with a sleep-inducing move, you can't sleep another one. The one-hit KO clause prevents the use of Guillotine, Fissure, and Horn Drill, while the Evasion clause prevents the use of Double Team and Minimize. Next is the Species Clause, which prevents you from using 2 or more of the same Pokemon species. Finally, there is the Timer Clause. Pokémon Showdown has a move timer. If you don't make a move before that timer runs out, you lose the entire game. Some GSC tiers have their own clauses. You can look at the tier pages on Smogon to find out the clauses in each GSC tier. Now, it's time to delve into how you can play and learn GSC. As mentioned, Pokémon Showdown is where you will play your GSC games. First, make sure you register an account there to find people. There's a few ways to find games on Pokémon Showdown. Your first instinct for games is likely the GSC ladder. The ladder, as its name implies, is an ELO leaderboard you climb up or fall down by winning or losing games. The only metagame on the ladder is GSCOU, the main Gen 2 metagame, as well as the most popular. The ladder may seem like a convenient and easy place to find games, but the ladder I would not recommend that much. Not only is the activity on the ladder not great, but the ladder is notorious for its low quality. If you aren't playing people using just plain bad teams, you're fighting people spamming Swagger, Confuse Ray, Baton Pass, and a variety of other annoying moves. You can find competent players on the ladder. Heck, sometimes top players are on there. However, there's more bad than good. The ladder is likely to sour your impression of GSC, rather than help you learn it. If you want good GSC games that you can learn from, better options do exist. The GSC Discord has a matchmaking channel where you can ask for games in all the main GSC tiers. On Pokémon Showdown is the Runes of Alph room. In this room, you can again look for people to play. The room occasionally has tournaments that anyone is free to enter. Finally, you can sign up for tournaments on the Smogon forums. For GSCOU, there tends to be a number of tournaments held every year. If you are new, you want to focus on the individual tournaments. Anyone can sign up and play in these, unlike the team tournaments where you need to get drafted. It can be intimidating to join a tournament as a newbie, but trust me, you will learn far more playing good players than playing on the damn ladder. If you are playing a Smogon tournament game, you want to head over to Smog Tours. This is a Pokémon Showdown server. It's where all the best Gen 2 games are played. It's here where you can watch the best Gen 2 matches live. GSCOU is by far the most active GSC metagame. It's also the one with the most tournaments and most players. It's also the only one to have a permanent ladder. There are people playing the non-OU tiers though. The non-OU tiers tend to have at least 2 individual tournaments a year. You can find people to play using the methods I mentioned, matchmaking and the Runes of Alph room. In general, you do really want to be in the GSC Discord. The Discord is invaluable for all things GSC. Make sure you register a Smogon account so you can join the server. In addition to the matchmaking stuff, you can discuss GSC, ask for feedback on teams or games you played, get notified of tournaments, and find resources. On the Smogon forums is the Runes of Alph forum. In there is an entire sub-forum dedicated to GSC. There you can find various valuable threads. Viability rankings show you who the top threats in metagames are, discussion threads where people share their thoughts on the metagame, and threads archiving quality tournament games. There's a lot to chew on in there. The final thing I would like to touch on are Pokémon teams and team building. Within the main screen of Pokémon Showdown is the team builder, and in there you can build teams in the main GSC tiers. Here's a word of advice. If you are a newbie, don't start out building your own teams. You should use proven teams built by other players. When you get more familiar with a tier and better understand it, then you can build your own stuff. Every GSC tier has a list of sample teams that you can use. You can find these samples by clicking the samples button in the Runes of Alph room. I would be a bit cautious with some of these. Some people have called for certain sample lists to be updated. They aren't unusable, but they aren't fully updated to the current metagame trends. You remember those discussion threads I mentioned earlier though? In those threads are sometimes team dumps. Basically posts where a good player makes their teams public. More recent team dumps, like this one on screen, can be better to use than the samples. Also, again, you can ask people to rate your teams, either via the Rate My Team forum on Smogon or the team building channel in the GSC Discord. And that is all I have to say. You now know where and how you can play GSC. There's another question to address though. That question is why? Why should you even bother playing GSC? Well, tune in next time to find out why. I'll see you all then.